So prior to the sale, to make the sale happen, Jim and I had to go on a little junket. We flew first to Moylan's.
You're right.
Yeah, met with Brendan. They were one of the users of KitLifter for a very long time, equally as long as us. We anticipated, because Brendan's kind of a tough dude. He's a great guy,
Yeah.
but he can be kind of prickly. So we anticipated a fight there, because in the past he'd just send us back pictures of middle fingers when we'd say, "Hey, cease and desist." Literally pictures of middle fingers.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier.
Okay. Anyway, the premise of this is it's not a beer podcast. It's a podcast about beer, and it's not like I talk a lot about secrets or stuff, but it's just whatever I'm working on, whoever I'm next to. Especially if we've talked ahead of time, it's kind of fun to recap a little bit. But the other thing about it is it's. If I just like 2 years ago or during the pandemic, we had to equip for all kinds of communication. I used to say we were a broadcast company masquerading as a Brewers Guild,
Right.
And so like this has sort of become my hobby. So all of this is not paid for by the guild. It's just kind of something that I do.
It's a nice setup.
Yeah, thanks. If I realize if I don't tell these stories, they just kind of go away, you know? So, speaking of stories, you are Andy Ingram.
Hi, I am.
And you're with
Four Peaks Brewing Company.
Four Peaks Brewing Company. And how long has it been since day one? You weren't there on day one, but you were...
I was there day one. I was there day negative.
Negative one.
Yeah.
But you weren't on the original... You were brought in by a couple other people, yeah?
All of that was still prior to opening.
Yeah.
So I was working at a place called Coyote Springs.
Right.
Great brew pub. I swear it would still be open today if it was managed a little better.
One of the best. Can you pull that in a little bit towards you? Yeah. One of the best patios and locations in
100%.
Phoenix.
It was amazing. Yeah. It's now in Orvis. So
yeah.
Go figure. Anyway, we were there, and I was the assistant brewer to a guy named Clark Nelson. Really good brewer, really good guy. We, at the time, were trying to work on our own business plan. And coincidentally, there was a group of guys that would come in and kind of pick our brains about equipment and brewing and brewers. And quickly figured out that they were also planning a brewery, and that was my partners, Scotsel. And at the time, there was a group of us, probably, I think, at the highest number I think we ever had was 7 people involved. But it was then we kind of decided, look, we know, Clark and I know about the brewing side. You guys are kind of handling the business side. Let's just pool whatever little money we have and try to do this thing together.
Right.
Worked out great. It worked out really quickly after that, actually. They were very motivated, found our current building, 8th Street,
right,
the mothership. And we started rolling after that. It took a while to get the building up to code. 130-year-old building.
So this is 1995, 6?
Probably late 94, 95, early 95. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to get a sense of how long that was.
How old I am?
Hey, I'm older than you, and I think I've aged. I think I caught up in gray hairs, even though I have less hair. It's all on my face.
I color this. I put this in.
But the reason I ask is obviously you had a great history with that brewery, and then I remember getting a call from Jim Scussel on I think the 20th of December. Gave me a heads up that you were in the middle of a sale to Anheuser-Busch, and oddly enough, we had sort of fought together on a law that you didn't end up taking advantage of.
No, we didn't need to. Yeah.
So,
I'm still glad we did it.
I'm super glad too. It's helped us out a lot in terms of being relevant. And
a lot of cynical people out there said that we did it because we knew the sale was coming. That's just not the case.
it offered you absolutely no advantage whatsoever because the license you had to switch to.
Yeah.
I mean, it did give you maybe the north location for a little longer, but
yeah,
we as we were discussing, and we won't get into the details, like all Title IV, until someone actually does it, it's kind of
kind of
find out who your enemies are and who your supporters are,
kind of a wink and nod situation. Yeah.
So, but I mean, by all rights, our adversaries would say that at this point in history, none of our breweries would exist. There would only be you. That's not happened.
No, it has not. Thank God.
So, we're obviously reaching sort of a crisis point for some businesses in our industry.
Sure.
And, there's got to be some rethinking, and it's going to have to come from people who might not be in the industry right now. I mean, it could be soon, but you went through the 90s, and there was a huge fallout. I mean, it went from, I'm going to just throw a ballpark. It went from like maybe 25 breweries to maybe 3?
In the state?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty horrible shakeout.
Yeah.
We went through that shakeout and then 2 recessions. So we've got some staying power. People ask us how we did it and why we were able to manage and others weren't. And I think a lot of it had to do with sort of being established at the time.
Right.
Also being kind of trusted. Like, we made good beer, good, clean, quality beer. And when money was tight, people weren't wanting to spend money on something they were going to gamble on. So I think that got us through a lot of it. But yeah, the shakeout was kind of terrifying.
You were mostly draft in the beginning, and then when did you switch to package?
We tried to go as long as we could draft only. So we probably started bottling in late 98, 99.
Yeah.
Kind of out of necessity.
Right.
By then, I mean, we killed it on premise. If you had a bar, we were on tap.
That is true.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you in Christopher Creek and Yuma.
Everywhere. And
everywhere.
That wasn't easy. That was, Alliance helped. They were very helpful at the time. But it was us. I mean, we were motivated. We just knew that at the time, the feeling was, or the general sort of idea was, if you can get on draft, if you can get in front of people, then they'll go to the store and buy it. So we'd ever start out packaging thinking that we're going to do it right away. So we wanted to get it in everybody's hand and everybody's mouth. So that was the best and easiest way to do it. But we hammered it. We were always out there. So
we have a lot of breweries now in package. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that part of that was the pandemic. I want to say that there are some that thought that was going to be the only future for our entire industry. That was a real feeling. There was the PPP money, which some used towards investing in that. I think obviously the industries that support our industry were motivated to make those sales, not just out of business reasons, but like I think we all felt like that was a great answer. And as it turns out, I think a lot of people didn't really do the math on that, I think there was a great moment for Arizona breweries and larger distributors, but now we're kind of seeing what a bottleneck in that looks like.
Yeah.
I don't think some of the breweries that did that, we're looking at the increase in labor and scaling. So it would really force an issue. Nevertheless, I think they're a great option to manage your inventory if you're selling, again, across your bar to go. But I think there's just this land rush and a lot of navel gazing about, hey, we need to be somewhere. And we're seeing a lot of retailers just pick things up, and just because they put it on their shelves doesn't mean it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, but did that kind of happen for you all? Because I imagine that happened with Oak Creek and Prescott were probably getting into the package game at the same time, and we still had this vast, and we still do, out-of-state presence.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a rush for us. We were still, we love drafts. We love bars. We love that aspect of the business. And to jump ahead to COVID when that went away, that was terrifying because, I mean, everything shut down, you're gone. You're now relying on your package. Hopefully it's good. And I still don't think, I mean, maybe we are back to pre-pandemic levels on premise, but we're not fully back, and we're not extending it. That's for sure. I mean, the ramifications are long. Just fewer options to be on draft. But no, we never felt a rush to get into package. We wanted to do that right as well. And we started in bottles, canning. There were no small can lines at the time. Thank you, Dale. So yeah, it was bottles. Fortunately, Arizona is a bottle state. A lot of people still don't understand that. They're like, why don't you just go to all cans? You can't here. You have to have some other option. I know there's a lot of breweries that are can only, and they're doing great, but it just opens up a little bit more for you.
Yeah, there was a period when I was like, if you have the stones to get a bottling line, you could probably own the packaged Hefeweizen market. Yeah. Which is still like popular for a lot of people. Yeah. And I don't know, it took me a while. I mean, I grew up on Miller, and long neck bottles, and you put the bottle between a couple fingers and like, it took a long time. Like, I got to use my whole hand now. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, this thing's cold.
Yeah. What did packaging teach you about your operation that you didn't know it was going to teach you?
It taught us we were really bad at packaging.
Yeah.
And you can blame equipment and you can blame manufacturers, but if your process isn't solid and if you aren't on top of it, it's a recipe for disaster. I unfortunately will go out, and we were out yesterday and we had a few beers that I know are exceptional beers. And we had one at Pantake that I was super excited to try, and then I tried it and it was like, what a letdown.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of ingress of oxygen can, and if I didn't know better from that brewery being very, very good, I would maybe not try it again.
Yeah. It's weird because everyone who's, I guess, a normal, regular person thinks like, the brewing industry is exactly the same. And, even if you never package, there are so many different models. But I think packaging it's like there are entire beverage manufacturers that all they do is package. They don't produce; they just package.
Yep.
And so it's its own business.
Yeah.
Distribution is its own business. And I think there's not a lot that can prepare you from your other business, which is making beer.
Yeah. I mean, you've got some tools in your tool belt. I mean, you should know at least the basics of how to be clean and how to clean a machine and how to maintain a machine. But it's what to do on the fly when the wheels come off. That's the hard part. I mean, we're incredibly fortunate. We're a big brewery. We're owned by the massive brewery, and we have those tools. But a lot of guys don't.
Right.
And unfortunately, good packaging equates to what you spend. So you buy a cut rate bottling line or canning line, you're going to get cut rate product.
Right.
So we're fortunate in that fact. But even if we weren't with AB, we always tried to find the top of the line stuff, no matter what it costs.
Right. So we talked yesterday a little bit because I had been to Seattle and I told Andrew a little bit about what I remember of the Kilt Lifter story. As it pertains to when you went through the sale. Yeah. But I got some details wrong. Can you kind of run that down a little bit?
Yeah. So prior to the sale, we had defended the mark. We had it registered. There were two other breweries in the country that had some contest to it. Some legitimate, some maybe not so much. They both claimed to have had prior use. Couldn't prove it. This was pre-internet, so nowadays you can prove it by just going back to one of your old websites or old web pages. But we couldn't do that. So prior to the sale, to make the sale happen, Jim and I had to go on a little junket. We flew first to Moylan's.
You're right.
Yeah, met with Brendan. They were one of the users of Kilt Lifter for a very long time, equally as long as us. We anticipated, because Brendan's kind of a tough dude, He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But he can be kind of prickly. So we anticipated a fight there because in the past he'd just send us back pictures of middle fingers when we'd say, "Hey, cease and desist." Literally pictures of middle fingers. So that was tough. And it's not that he capitulated completely. He fought a little bit, and then we're like, "Okay, you know why we're here? What's the number?
Right.
Like, what dollar amount do you want?" And he spit it out. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say it.
No,
Spit out.
I don't. That doesn't matter. That's not part
And
of
he
it.
spit it out, and Jim and I were just instantly like, done, deal, perfect, great. Like we couldn't believe that he was that low. We're
Right.
like, oh, okay, yeah. And then there was some negotiating about, yes, you can keep it on site and you can keep it within 8 miles of your brewery or whatever.
Right.
And that was ticky-tack stuff, but it was done. Next flight was to Seattle, and this one we thought was going to be a little bit easier. We were meeting with Charles Finkel and his wife, whose name escapes me.
Rose.
Yeah, Rose. And we thought that would be a little easier. They were a little older. They've been in the industry a very long time. They've probably done these negotiations many times before with Merchant de Vin.
Right.
So we kind of thought
that's
this
some foreshadowing right there, though.
yeah. I probably should have known. Jim and I anticipated this one to be going to be a little bit easier. AB, not so much. They sent a lawyer with us on this one. So we were kind of, okay, thanks for the confidence. Like we feel like we knocked it out of the park with Brendan. So we get there, we meet and, chit chat for a little bit, and then we get down to brass tacks about, why we're here. They knew why. And they're like, yeah, we're absolutely willing to deal. We're going to write down a number and you just tell us what you think. Scribbled out a number and Charles pushed it across the table and there's a lot of zeros. There's a lot of zeros. And at that point I was tired. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Then the lawyers kind of jumped in and did lawyer things. And we were at that table though for about 5 hours. Negotiating. And with Charles, it's great. It's not really negotiating.
Right.
He'll talk about a trip to Belgium and then.
Right, yeah.
And then they're captivating. They're
Right.
charming.
And they're like, I don't know, 20 years older than you. And like they're about lasting you to the.
Yeah. So we finally came back to a number significantly less than their first number,
Right.
but significantly more than Brendan's number. And they had a lot bigger plan about what sort of radius they wanted. It was kind of a tiered thing. They want, after X years, they'll pull it back to here and
Right.
back to here, and
Right.
then eventually just be in Seattle. They haven't always stuck to their word on that one. We find kilt lifters in Portland every now and then, and we're like, you gotta kind of stop. And they do, and they clean it up and get it fixed. So,
Right.
An interesting junket, to say the least, because at the time Jim and I didn't know if it was our money that we were spending because we weren't with AB yet.
Right.
So that was a little nerve-wracking. It ended up, they of course covered the cost on it.
They looked at the number and go, what, this is.
But the lawyer was just like, he took his tie off. He was like, I'm done. I can. This is not even reasonable. Buy a planet for this much money.
You can deny this, but I thought you told me that there was a conversation where they were trying to say how much they were producing, and you could literally see the.
Oh, that was Brendan. He had a ticker above the bar about how many barrels they had produced for each beer. And as he's going, he blurted out, well, I do X amount of kilt lifter here. And I look right over his shoulder. I'm like, no, you don't. And he kind of looked sheepish grin. He's like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, going back to our last topic, a little bit of what's happened since the sale. Do you still get people? I mean, there are people who like, oh yeah, this is really bad for the industry, Budweiser and Four Peaks, but they would be in your back door, asking for advice or sharing beers
Sure.
or coming by for Sunday brunch, or whatever. Is that still happening a little bit, or
Maybe, and certainly not as much.
Right.
I mean, there were certainly times when there were brewers in town who will remain nameless who would pretty much drag us through the mud in the press and then turn around and text us and go, I had to say that. I'm sorry, I love you guys. I'm like, well, then don't say it so mean. I mean, so yeah.
I hope I never say. I try to be really
You've been great.
fair about
you,
it.
You have a hard line to toe. So, but you've been fair and honest about it. So, and we expected the criticism. We knew it was happening. We weren't the first one to sell, and we saw
Right.
some of the bloodbaths that happened over there. But I think the difference between us and, say, a Golden Road, who got it pretty hard,
Right.
we were 20 years old at the time.
Yeah.
They were 3 years old.
Right.
So it was a little different. I'd like to think that we've had a nice base of fans, and and it was really just the hardcore beer people that hated it. Everyone
Yeah.
else was just like, that's the American dream, man. Like, if you were a software company, we'd be doing backflips for you. But we make beer.
It seems like there are people in life that just automatically have to have a very raw first opinion, and then they can never get off of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I bring that up because what I've seen, and maybe you can confirm or in general, is there was a lot more going to a particular place and seeing a different crew come in from a brewery. Over the last 10 years that I've been doing the job, that's changed quite a bit, and kind of because it used to be fun, but now things aren't as fun. Nevertheless, I think this is the worst time to put your head down and not reach out to your peers, talk to your peers, network, have that little moment of joy.
Yeah.
And I know things, like people could have had 3 sets of kids by now, and because the newer breweries are somewhere they're getting close to 10 years, or 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know what your lease with the building was when you started. Was it 5 or 10 or 15 or 20?
We had consecutive 5s up to 15 years.
Right.
And that's changed. Sometimes it was just a 5, sometimes
So-
it was a 10, but it was always kind of repeated 5s that we would stack.
Remembering that, if a lot of these breweries are between 9 and 6 years old right now, I mean, if we're looking at the humps of the demographics of our industry, there's you in that first hump, and then there was nothing
For a long time.
Yeah, and then like Santan kind of started the new era-ish, but those guys are on their second lease or getting to their first lease.
Yeah.
If it was 10,
Yeah.
and I think this is a bad time to be signing leases again.
Yep.
So put yourself in their shoes and with your experience. I mean, what recommendations do you have?
We're going through it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, being around for 30 years, we've got a lease negotiation coming up. It's 2 years out or a year and a half out, but we're on it right now.
Right.
Because we know it can go sideways. And our landlord's been great to us. But he also sees dollar signs. He knows who owns us.
Right.
I don't blame him. So those negotiations are getting a little sticky. But I'm so glad we're on it now. It's never too early to renegotiate a lease. You can do it the day after you sign it. And I would recommend that, not waiting till the last minute. Because you want to have some idea of what's going to happen. That would be the other thing. And expect an increase.
Right. I just, been hearing national reports of, and I can see this, where people are getting priced out of their brewery because, one, they're not negotiating the lease. They're expecting an increase, but I think a lot of them, I've heard that in a lot of contracts, there's an automatic 25, 30% if you would go beyond the extension of the lease and don't negotiate it.
Yeah.
And there are a couple breweries that have just been like, hey, we need that extra 30 grand now, 40 grand, whatever. And I think ignoring it is going to be a huge problem. And there are people who've gotten out of this industry who maintain that, everything worked out. I put my kid through college and going to do something else. And I think that opportunity can still exist, but you got to sort of tackle that lease thing, and you got to look at your business loan and all that
That's a big
stuff.
one, for sure. And I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Maybe don't let your eyes get so big. Not to be completely, austere about it, but I think the days of opening a brewery, getting in the package, getting with a distributor, all within 2 years, and grow they're probably over. Hopefully, it comes back. But I think to maybe curb your enthusiasm or your expectations a little bit. You could live a great life with a great brew pub setup.
Yeah.
You could put your kids through college, you could live a comfortable life, and still keep it within the four walls. But there's just some urge, and everyone has it, to want to grow, to think you make this great thing, and I want to share it with everybody. Maybe now's not the time. Maybe pull back or enjoy what you have, and realize that there might not be lots of zeros. There might be something that you can live comfortably with, though, and you might have to do that.
Is it kind of like a musician, like seeing your stuff in a store and like hearing your song on the radio? Is that kind of
Sure.
But at some point, that kind of dies out a little bit. Yeah. I mean,
You think?
yeah. Let's briefly talk about what the restaurant and brew pub side of it taught you, since you brought that up. And you had a great partner in Arthur.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Randy.
I get people who say, "Hey, I want to start a brewery," and they used to say Four Peaks or Santan, but lately they've been saying, well, not in a while, Arizona Wilderness. And they would tell me, like, I'd say, well, great, tell me about your restaurant. And they'd be like, well, we don't know anything about the restaurant. I'm like, you don't have to. You have to find the person that does. That's how this works.
Yeah. Well, we'll just get a food truck.
Yeah. Oh my God. I said, yeah. But
It's not a bad model, the food truck model, if you do it right, but it's, wow, hit and miss.
yeah, to me, it's like if you are a bartender there, you're not getting those tips. You're cleaning up after things.
Yeah.
If truck doesn't show up,
Yeah, that's the big
who do
one.
they blame?
Right.
Who do they look at?
Yeah.
Like, especially after the pandemic, people are so irrational about complaining about stuff.
Yeah, right.
with the staff, like, or the business, that's a fair game, but like a little staff person, like, it's not their fault.
And if you do the food truck model, if it was me, I would want a consistent food truck, because that's, like, we're known for certain dishes at Four
Right.
Peaks. Chicken rolls, beer bread sandwiches. That's why you go there. That's what you're going to get. If it's a food truck model, you can have Thai food one day, you can have barbecue the next day, which is, I'm not knocking it. That's great. Some people have variety, but you also have to be known for something.
Right. Yeah. But what did it teach you? The bringing people in your space and taking care of them, and
It taught me to get a good partner who handles that, because I would have been awful at it. I can run a brewery all day long, but the kitchen side is different. I waited tables for 4 years prior to getting into beer, so
Right.
I understand that side of it.
Right.
And it's a grind. It is hard. You're a vampire. You don't see the light of day. You're always tired. You're working for tips generally. At least back then, for sure you were. It taught me, like you said, the value of getting someone who's good at it. And Arthur was incredibly good at it. He and Randy were like the two-headed beast. Randy did kind of front of house stuff very well, and Arthur did all the back of the house stuff extremely well. Arthur's background was that he's a Culinary Institute of America graduate. He owned several restaurants prior to us opening that were amazing.
yeah.
So we kind of headhunted him. We'd love to go to his restaurant, and then we'd kind of purposely stay late until he was getting close to closing and pick his brain and sit down, and became great friends with him. And then eventually he became an investor, and then
Right.
eventually he just completely moved in.
Right.
So it's a big boon for us. It was a big,
Yeah. When that sale went through, it was like, I'm out.
yeah, he was done.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. The guy's been working in kitchens since he was 13 or 14. So.
Right. I think that model has a lot of legs. Because it still can be folded together. There's a tap room, Buki Bichi. They're from Hermosillo.
Yeah, I haven't been.
Their food is amazing,
bet.
and it's not your typical Mexican food.
Yeah.
it is more of the style of.
I
where
follow
they come
them on
from.
Instagram, and I get the
They won a gold medal for their Kolsch
yeah.
style.
I know. I got to get down there. I'm so bad. I just don't go out much anymore.
Right. Well, that's why I grabbed you and like, it's easier just to catch her now with
Yeah.
this little talk. But last thing I'll bring up, unless you want to chat about something that we didn't bring up from yesterday, but I haven't been in Montana in a long time, and I remember going to Tamarack.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they have a beer bread chicken sandwich, and then I
And
looked
chicken
into
rolls.
it. Yeah, chicken rolls. I mean, and
Beer breads too.
yeah, I was like, what's going on here? And then I figured out. But can you tell me a little bit about that? And then there's another brewery that also has some pedigree. And
We're extremely proud. Like, we've had so many guys leave us and then go on to start their own thing. In Durango, there's Animus Brewing. Scott Bickard was there. In Missoula, there's God, I'm gonna forget the name. The
DraftWorks.
DraftWorks.
Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah.
DraftWorks in Missoula, and then Josh Townsley, and at the time, Craig Kuntz went and started Tamarack Brewing. They broke off. Kuntz now owns a place in Kalispell called Sunrift Brewing Company. Yeah, it's just been this sort of cool extended family. It sucks to lose those guys, but
Right.
they were super talented, and they wanted to branch out and do their own thing, and they did. So good
It'd
for
be,
them.
it'd be kind of cool to see an infographic and all that. You know,
it's like-
and also
was it-
the Grundy tank story.
Yeah, I think Phoenix Magazine might have done a sort of family
Oh, they did
tree.
that.
Yeah, so it's out there.
I'm going to take credit for that actually, because I talked to Craig. I said, the George Seifert, San Francisco
coaching tree, yeah.
Whatever. I'm actually, I am going to take credit for that.
Good,
We can
thank you.
confirm that with Craig. But I said you should do that.
Yeah, no, it turned out great.
Yeah. No, I have to go find that issue.
Mm-hmm.
They are supporters of our organization. They send all of our members a magazine.
Oh, great.
They're part of our awards, craft beer awards. I think this will be our third year. We're thankful that you're lending Melissa to help execute that, and
Happily.
so and maybe we'll talk to her. But I said, yeah, we got a little bit of time before that, and wanted to make sure we talked. Any parting thoughts? What's next for you?
That's a good question.
The
I don't
crew?
know. I'm still on. I have contracts with
Right.
AB, and this next one's up in December. So we'll see what happens then. Their track record has been to keep the founders around.
Right.
As far as my role at the brewery, it's great. I don't get to do all the stuff that I hated to do, all the kind of PR stuff and all the HR stuff. And so I get to focus on beer again. It's great.
Right.
So I get to work very closely with Melissa now on a lot of the new innovative stuff. So it's
So back to the brew house more.
back to the brew house.
Wow.
And we're getting a new brewery. We're getting a little 5-barrel pilot system. After 30 years, we finally got a pilot system. It's been great. So that comes probably in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we'll get that online, and hopefully I'll get to do a lot more playing. We'll get some boots back on, and
Right.
yeah.
Right. So
fun.
you can lay all your toys out in
Yeah.
December, and is it going to be Christmas or not?
Yeah,
Is it going to be Christmas?
And I get to play old man and
Right on.
get off my lawn.
Hey, it was great talking to you, and glad to see you up at Flagstaff. I'm glad I got the invite for this collaboration beer, which we didn't even talk about, but
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're
Lumberyard, yeah.
Lumberyard.
Yeah, so great to talk to you, and thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks. You too. That was fun yesterday too.
This is Aurora, Arizona Beer Frontiers AI voiceover. Stay tuned for more of the show and important messages from the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild.
Cool. So the good news is Andy covered all the political stuff and all the controversial stuff. And no, I mean,
So we can just talk about fun.
you can just talk about beer if you want or whatever. But I explained to Andy, and I'll tell you, this is not a beer podcast. It's a podcast about beer. Meaning, you have some Pacific Northwest roots.
I do. I was born and raised in Phoenix, but after college in Flagstaff at NAU, I went to Alaska for 4 years,
Right.
and worked at Alaskan Brewing Company.
Oh, okay. I was, for some reason, I thought you were in Washington State or Oregon.
No, Juneau is often considered a suburb of Seattle, so it's a little bit.
No, I did know. I did know about Alaskan for sure, but
Definitely spent a lot of time in Seattle.
I'm going. This is a long way of saying. Do you remember Don Younger from the Horse Brass?
Yes.
He used to say, "It's not about the beer; it's about the beer."
Yep.
Similar
Yep.
concept. So we don't review beers. We don't. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about brewing, but it's more about what happens when Andrew's with me in our everyday life. Working the guild, and we obviously have secret stuff that we'd never talk about, but if we don't tell some of these stories, they just kind of disappear forever.
Right.
So we're not going to get too much into everyone's backstory, but Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Name's Jeff. I'm the head brewer here at Lumberyard. Been here for about 9 years. Been in the industry for almost 20. Pretty simple.
Where did you start? And lean into the mic a little bit.
So I started officially brewing at Grand Canyon Brewery.
Right.
I was installing breweries before I got into brewing.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Anywhere?
so I did some outside fermentation tanks at Alpine Brewing,
Okay.
smaller glycol systems. Always on the construction side, and then got into brewing somehow. Biggest mistake I ever made.
Good times.
Good times.
Right on.
No, I love brewing though. It's just definitely different.
And
Community based too. Being engaged with the community is awesome. So definitely love that aspect of it. Jesus, tired and hungover.
And everyone calls you Roper, but you're Jim Roper. And
Jim Roper, yep. Brewmaster now at Four Peaks Brewing Company. I've been there for 22 years and been in the industry since 93. I took a year off to be a surveyor and geologist with an engineering firm in Juneau, and I got back into brewing because I preferred to be a brewer. And it was I could work nights on the graveyard and ski all day. So
right on. If you're the brewmaster, Melissa is the innovation brewer.
she's the innovation manager.
manager.
Yep.
Okay. And and talking to Andy, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to get back into brewing." So he's back in the brew house a little bit more. Is that going to be true?
Andy's definitely around. Usually 3 to 4 days a week, and very involved. And I want to be back in and around the brew house. I'm trying to get on the floor as much as possible. So I want to teach and learn from everybody that we have on staff. That's a great team of folks. I know a lot about filtration and a lot of the finishing side of it as well. So I want to, again, learn and teach and try to build up confidence and really get engaged with the team.
So generally, what are the responsibilities between the three of you? Like for the average person, like, are you more on the production side and making sure that your current lineup is?
Yeah, my focus now is more on safety, quality, and throughput production. So
Right.
I'm watching over the beers and the quality, and then any kind of innovation, I'm work with Melissa on that. So she's heading that up, but I when she needs assistance, I'm there to help her. So it's good. It's a good mix.
Right on.
But-
So she's introducing ideas, and then between the three of you, you understand what might be slipstreamed into regular products, and then
Yeah, she
Mark-
often finds more time with Ingram
Yeah.
than I do.
Right.
I'm often at the bigger brewery, and we do sensory and stuff together with Andy. But she has more time with Ingram, so they spin a lot of ideas off each other, and I come in and try to facilitate.
Right on. I'm just trying to understand how that all works. It works differently at every brewery, right? And the
For sure.
titles
For
sometimes
sure.
matter and sometimes they don't.
Titles don't matter to me. That's the title they gave me. So
Right on, right on. So between the three of you guys is there anyone else that deserves a shout out at the brew house?
Andy Harden's our plant manager, operations manager, director of ops is what he's going to move into. And Colton Grimmer is also working on a lot of the innovation stuff at Wilson. So
Right.
some of the stuff translates from Melissa on either a 5-barrel, 40-barrel size over to the 60. That there's a lot of collaboration there between Colton and Melissa.
Right on. I remember Colton and his dad when they were homebrewers.
They're
mean,
awesome
yeah.
folks and great brewer.
So you all work on it together, and then marketing gets a hold of it and destroys it.
Correct, and sometimes they destroy it first and bring it to us and make us try to do it, and
Right.
that's sometimes a challenge because they have a cool idea but not quite
Right.
pinpoint focused where we need it to be. So there's a lot of back and forth, and then we finally get there and everybody's happy.
Right on, right on. And Jeff, on your side of the fence, I will admit I listened to the salesperson, and he told me to be here yesterday at 10 o'clock. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like,
That's the sales side.
I know. I'm like, but I should have been here at 7.
Yeah, we. Well, I'm an early bird anyway. Me and Ollie, so we're usually here by 6.
Right. How does your team break down? It's you.
So
or
there's 3 of us here, excluding Gene. Gene basically oversees everything, and then on the floor it's myself, Ollie, and Mike, and then we also have Steve that we bring over from Beaver Street if we need a hand.
right on.
But yeah, everybody kind of does everything here. I guess there's titles, but they don't really matter. I could be brewing or filtering, and same with everybody else here.
We're taking out the trash.
Or taking out the trash.
So how does Beaver Street work in the mix?
So Beaver Street, it's a much smaller pub. So if his tanks are full, we bring them over here. So Steve will be helping packaging, brewing, filtering. Just whenever we need him, basically. He's on a 10-barrel system there.
Right.
So he fills those tanks up pretty quick, and 10 barrels lasts a good little while in the restaurant.
Do you use that brewery for one-offs and
we've done collabs out of there. We've done them with Oso a couple times now.
right,
It's really hard to do a collab over there. It's so small.
right.
So here we have a little more space to work with. We've actually been trying to do this collab for like 8 years. Finally happened.
Yep.
So what do you guys appreciate about collaboration beers? And then we'll actually talk about the beer, but like, what is it that you get out of it? Do you actually take away any actual practical techniques away sometimes, or?
Yeah, totally. I mean, just in this brewing process on this one, learn different techniques and doing things, and it's awesome. And then it's, they've been doing it at a high level of brewing for a long time, so it's just nice being around people like that.
Yeah, we come in and learn stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a million ways to skin a cat. And,
Totally.
And you think you've got the best way, but then
Right.
you come and you'll still learn something every day.
I took a few photos yesterday. I got a picture of you guys all pointing to the sheet. Like it looked like a totally staged photo. Like I think there was at least 3 fingers on the sheet at one time. It was
pretty
kind of
funny.
It was hilarious. But we often talk about like you could have the same recipe and different brew house, different brewer, and the beer will be different. And even the spec sheet, the way it's set up is probably different, right? I mean, like,
Yep.
And what you get out of it is, for some, it's recording what happened, and for some, it's targeting what's going to happen. Which
exactly.
camp you guys fall into? I would think with a known established beer. Let's talk about the fun beers though. Like, is it a record of what happened, or is it you push it as a target?
It's
a little bit both, I think.
I think
right?
it is. I think you start with a plan, and then it modifies itself throughout the day.
And sometimes it
based on
changes.
new ideas, or if there was something we brought to the table
Right.
in the process, and we try something different that they've never tried, and you don't learn that until the day of the brew. So, but it's definitely note taking to make sure you keep track of what the heck happened.
Yeah, always keep
Especially
track of
later in the
everything.
day when the beers start flowing.
Especially when you start drinking at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a little bit of that yesterday. But back to this actual beer hand. It is an XBA.
It is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
who wants to explain that?
It's a pretty straightforward recipe. Almost all 2-row. It's going to be lighter bodied beer, but still have a lot of hop character. It's going to be not quite on the IPA side, but it's going to still have bitterness and a lot of aroma.
So, in this whole family, there's, especially if you talk about competition
Yeah.
categories, and I'm going to miss some. I mean, there's pale ale, there's extra pale, there's American Strong
Yep.
Pale, IPA, and then doubles and triples, and then you can throw the hazy at it.
Yep.
What will consumers recognize about it being an XBA, or will they? Will they think it's more of an IPA, or will they think it's more of a pale, or?
I think the craft beer drinker is going to know it's a pale ale. I think if it's a new beer drinker, they might think it's an IPA because it is still going to be hoppy.
Yeah.
Right.
IBUs will be high enough to
Yeah.
make it feel like an IPA,
Yeah.
but it's still a pale ale.
Right.
As
Pale
far
ale,
as that goes.
It's going to be lower alcohol.
Is-
Be right around 5%. So it's not going to be in the 6s.
So what does the extra refer to in the extra pale ale? Is it extra? I thought it was a color thing, but maybe
So
not.
there's almost zero color in this beer.
Yeah,
Right.
super light.
Yeah.
Oh, so I got it right.
It's actually
Yeah.
finer.
Jeez,
Finer.
Yeah.
I recently judged the Australasian or Australian style pale ale,
Right.
and it really falls in that category really well.
Yeah,
it's kind
this-
of
this-
exciting.
Yeah.
There was actually literally something I just kind of glanced at about the origins of different beers. They talk about the origins of the Italian Pilsner, Birrifico, Italy, and they talked about Brindleson picking it up to make it, his version of it, Pivo, and then they just kind of rattle off. And the last one was XP. I'm like, oh, so this is kind of weird that it's coming up in whatever my feed is, or maybe they are spying on us. I don't know. So it's the color, huh? And I was thinking that it was going to be a Australia or New Zealand kind of thing.
Yep. Should be good for an Arizona market, especially in the summertime.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right. So it's
Super
going to
light,
finish
crisp.
much cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hoppy. Yep.
But will there be some ale characteristics, or will they be reduced with the yeast?
It'll be Chico yeast
Yeah,
or
it's Chico yeast
1056.
1056.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a dry finish, nice crisp. It's gonna be a good beer.
That yeast is usually pretty clean, doesn't
Yeah.
throw a lot of esters, so
Yeah.
should be
Right.
really hop forward, but not overly bitter.
Nice.
The malts is just enough to carry the hop
Yep.
character.
So this is the second one that I remember you guys doing in the last 6 or 8 months, right? You guys did that German Surfer.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
I already forgot about
Yep.
that.
We had you down at our place, and we did
Yeah, the German
a 40 barrel batch on our pilot system.
That was on the pilot system.
Yeah, 40 barrel pilot.
That was a good beer. That was a hoppy lager. It was a West Coast Pilsner, basically.
Yep.
It was a good beer.
Right on, right on. So, what do you guys got coming up this summer, fall? What's on the brew schedule?
So for us, our next beer would be our Oktoberfest. Actually, we're going to brew that in probably about 6 weeks and let it lager until, our distributor basically wants it in the middle of August. So they want it September 1st on the market.
Right.
And everybody does one, and that market fills up real fast.
Sure it does.
And yeah, I think we released ours a couple weeks or 3
Yeah.
weeks prior to that. So
Right.
ours is going in the fermenter.
Yep.
Does that
Yeah, I
drive
think
you
it's
guys?
already in the fermenter.
Does that seasonal creep drive you guys nuts, or is it just something
yeah.
you deal with?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Both, right?
I think we're sort of famous for a pumpkin porter, and
Yeah.
the seasonal creep of the pumpkin porter releasing in July in Phoenix is kind
Yeah.
of ridiculous, but I guess that's what you have to do.
If the consumer behaved differently, you guys could adjust. So it's not really the brewers pushing this; it's consumer behavior.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly.
Because when people complain about if you would do what you say you do, then if you bought them only in the period that you think they should be enjoyed, and everyone else did that, then there wouldn't be the problem.
Right.
I also say, hey, if they could make fresh hop beers every day, you would not complain about that. You
Not
might
at all.
not get tired of them, but you would not say, oh, they should only be out,
Yeah.
whatever. Are your brewing schedules more complicated or less complicated as
So
things kind of flatten out after COVID?
for us, I mean, this is a busy season for us until
Yeah.
Phoenix gets too hot and Phoenix kind of slows down.
Right.
But for us, I mean, it's just trying to keep up with the flagship beers. So
Right.
when the seasonal comes around, we're kind of seeing what we can move around to get a tank open. And for us, Oktoberfest is our biggest seasonal, so we usually do 40 or 60 barrels of that.
Right.
And we're a fairly small brewery, so it's kind of hard squeezing that in when we're trying to get a Railhead Red and Flag IPA.
Well, I overheard you say that you hadn't been taking vacation lately. So
No, yeah.
So you're
I'm
going to
taking
take a
one- I'm
vacation?
taking a vacation.
Where are
here
you gonna
soon. Nowhere.
Nowhere?
Nope, nowhere. I'm gonna go golf in Phoenix and probably hang out with these guys maybe a little bit, and that's it. Just turn my phone off.
Right. You could golf in another time of year, probably.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
free
sure.
round though. It's a free round. I take the free rounds where you can get them.
Right. And you also said you used to raise goats.
I did.
Tell me
I
about
mi-
that.
I missed the goats. It was fun. I used to live out on 64, pretty rural area, and I originally got goats because I was sick of pulling weeds. That's how that whole all started.
Yeah.
But then, I had nicest yard in there and started having goat milk and goat cheese, and they're super easy animals to have.
Did you ever loan your goats out for?
I did.
Wow.
All the time in that neighborhood where I lived. And actually, that's when I moved into town here, I actually gave my goats to my neighbors. And
Wow.
they're doing the same thing.
You miss your goats.
Miss the goats.
Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't know that. I was like, do you raise them for eating or no?
Nope.
You're milk and cheese.
Yep,
Okay.
milk and cheese.
You got any kind of agrarian hobbies like that?
No,
Got a green thumb? Did you ever grow hops?
tried.
Tried.
It's tough in Phoenix.
Sure.
We've been trying to grow them at the brewery the last couple of years, and they do really, really well until mid to late June, and then
Yeah.
they burn out. If
Yeah.
we're going to try a lot more water this year and see if we can get them to survive a little longer, but we'll see.
Yeah, you kind of got to trick them. Well, what do I know? Mine did the same thing, but
Yeah.
you kind of lower them and so they don't get up too high and get
Yeah.
up too much in the hot air. Because I think the hot air is just what kills it.
It is,
It's
and
like-
they're really kind of in a bad spot on the south side of the building with the sun all day beating, and then that concrete radiating that heat through the evening, so that it doesn't really get to cool off much.
Right.
We should probably move them to the back of the building, but nobody would see them then.
I walked into 8th Street a while ago, and there was a beautiful avocado plant growing out of one of the planters. And then the next time I was there, it was gone.
Yep.
Was
We
that-
do have people come by and take what they want. It's crazy. We've had some watermelons go missing, some tomatoes.
So funny.
Who's,
That's
do you
so
know whose
funny.
project that was?
This is Sean Snelling. He's our new GM the
Yeah.
last couple of years. Great guy. He's got the green thumb. So he and Zach, one of our maintenance guys, they
Right.
work on that together. Keep tabs on it. They're helping with the hops as well.
I came by yesterday, and you were packaging, I think, Flagstaff IPA.
Flagstaff IPA,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So you got a team of like 2 or 3 people working that line?
We do. So we actually have a new guy. So he's kind of training right now, teaching him just in the canning room the simple stuff, kegging right now. But yeah, so there's always at least 3 of us in here for the most part.
Right.
And the job
You're
changes.
going to be able to
day
walk
day.
away and feel like everything's
I'm
going to get done?
gonna walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll all get done. It's a good crew here.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
good stuff.
After all this time, you can walk away, right?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
deep enough.
What advice
team.
would you give? Because he's looked at his phone, he's like, look
I
at the
know.
boil. Is this boiling, man?
I know.
What advice would you give to Jeff about walking away from
You got to do it.
Just-
You have to do it.
Gotta do it.
It's actually good for the crew because then it makes them step up and they gain a little more confidence.
Right.
And the next time you go, it's even easier.
You want to give me the key? I'll open a valve in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just kind of freak him out a little bit.
Yeah.
and our design of the brewery too. So we have all the restaurant staff has to go in and out through the brewery, and I think it's the same at 8th Street, right? You gotta, and that's it just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, the back of a restaurant is
Yeah.
not the cleanest place for a brewery, but that's how brew pubs
That's how it is.
typically are. There's always pain points there, and doing distribution through the middle of a back of a restaurant's hard. Greasy forklift
Yeah.
wheels, things like that. You know.
Right
Crazy.
on. So I've been hanging out at Elks Lodges a lot. That's a thing that I think you're familiar with.
That's a thing for sure. Love
You
it.
guys got Kenna membership, right? Isn't
Yeah.
Ken's
Yeah, we
in
got
it?
Ken in the club. We got to get,
I'm ready.
Yeah,
right on.
we got about 15 friends now that are all Elks members. We got
So-
about 6 or 7 at Fort Peaks alone.
It seems to me, and you can tell me differently because you've gone a lot more across the country, but it seems to me Elks Lodges have a preponderance of Sam Adams and also Alaskan Amber. Does that
I'm
ring true
somewhat
for you?
familiar with that beer.
Do you see them like I see them? Like, is that one of the choices?
Definitely. I don't. If they're getting deals, I think it's kind of a charitable organization, so they're probably getting some sort of deal on the side.
Oh, it's
And-
also the age of the customer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But that's a beer you
Yeah.
help continuously design, right?
Yep, I think so. It's a Bud Light, a Miller Light, and an Alaskan Amber, or Sam Adams, something like that.
Right. So I'm trying to remember like when it was, but you and I sat down and I had you drink it and try it and
Yeah.
take it apart a little bit. Well, I don't remember what your impressions were, but
It tasted as good as usual.
right.
Yeah.
Is that ever going to come back? The amber, because it was a brew
I don't
pub
know.
staple, right?
Yeah.
For a long time.
There's lots of thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out if Ambers will ever come back.
Just definitely a food friendly thing, though, right?
Yeah, amazing with food for sure.
Right.
They check all the boxes, and you have so many different types of dishes you can pair with that kind of beer. But it's just interesting. Back then, when they were the most popular style, you're trying to get people from that were already drinking beer, drinking lighter beers, into craft, and that was a good transitional beer for that. Now we're trying to pull people away from fruity drinks and lighter, watery type seltzer drinks, and so I don't know if Amber's always the segue into beer that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find hazy IPAs are almost more transitional for folks, but it would be easier to get into craft if they still came to Amber first.
Right. Not to.
Yeah, and I think that might be a problem. IPA is such a big category now. Whatever kind of IPA it is, it's
Right.
either those people trying to get out of seltzer and into beer, they're getting an IPA first, and they either love it or hate it. And on an amber category, I think more people will love it.
It's weird sometimes with pushback you hear online and from a certain segment of our customer base is that, they're coming from heavily fruited smoothies
Yeah.
and complaining about other styles. It's like, that's more like fruit juice and wine, or I guess, than beer. But,
Yep.
totally off subject.
I blame the parents.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody of a certain generation grew up with a juice box in their mouth. Like, we did not have soda in our house. We did not have any of that stuff.
Yep.
Definitely there's a generation that has a sweet tooth.
Yeah, I
Most of
I
us.
often say that seltzer drinkers just came off the Capri Sun bag and into
Yep.
straight into a seltzer and never even thought about beer.
Right. So over your career, and I'll ask you the same question. So what are the beers that you're particularly proud of that you feel like you made your mark on, or you don't have to get into the specifics, but you tweaked it and you're like, this is where it should be now. And I know that's a continuous process, but
Yeah, we're always changing. Sometimes a beer will stay the same for years, and because we think we've nailed it, and then maybe the market changes, so you kind of tweak it. But I mean, for me, obviously Kolsch is my favorite style of beer. I'm just kind of a Kolsch nerd, and I worked on that beer for a lot of years to get it right, and I think it's still doing great. I don't know if it needs changes, but I've had a part of pretty much all the beers at Four Peaks and any kind of changes that have happened in the last 22 years since I've been there. So it's always evolving.
right.
Ingredients change over time. We've had to change up some ingredients to try to maintain flavor and consistency. So there's always
All right, so I'm going to ask somebody at operations there, like, can you bring strong service back from? I mean, just the little glasses would be great.
I know. We've been talking about that.
Really?
They're hard to manage, the glassware. And
Oh yeah, I mean, glassware's a nightmare.
Yeah,
and then
so-
like everyone wants to steal them, and the carriers,
Yep.
like the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, people are going to lie about the coaster thing. No, I'm just joking. And Jeff, what are the accomplishments along the way from some of the brands you worked with? Like,
It's pretty much the same answer for me here. Flagstaff IPA is our staple here. I love West Coast IPAs, hoppy beers, which is funny because when I first got into the industry, I hated them. Where's the raspberry at? And
Yep.
I finally had to kind of get my palate developed for it. And now I'm not a huge fan of the fruity beers. Actually, don't like them at all. But this IPA, and like you said, it's always ingredients change. You can't get certain things, whether it's hops or grain. And even the grain, it could be the same grain, but it changes. And this Flagstaff IPA has changed probably 3-4 times in the past 4 years.
right.
And there for a little bit, we actually took a lot of hops out of it. It wasn't really a West Coast IPA no more, and that's kind of what the market was calling for. But then we put our hazy on the market and kind of upped our hops back in the Flag IPA.
I think across all the styles, I don't have a hate for any one of them, but like if they finish drier than
Yes.
than not, then I'm pretty happy. And that includes fruit beers, because that used to be the thing, is to have them finish really dry, have the perception of that fruitiness.
Yep.
Because I used to love fruit beers, but I think they just finish too sweet, and I think that's just definitely something my age is kind of have to contend with. Like they're harder to digest.
Yeah, I think
with
it's
that
easier
residual sugar.
easier to sell another pint or consume another pint if it's nice and dry and crisp. And that's what we always try to do, is try to think of like a 5-pint rule when you're creating a beer. And would you sit down and drink 5 of these, or would you only drink 2 because it's
Right.
heavy and cloying and too much? Or would you want it to be nice and finished nice and dry and clean, so you almost like you want another sip because
5-pint rule. That's
it's not sitting there on
That's
your
an
on your
afternoon.
palate. Yeah.
I use the 3-beer rule in terms of if I'm somewhere where there are a lot of choices and I order the same beer 3 times in a row, it means that the beer is exactly what I want. May not be the best beer on the board, but it's perfect for me. And also, usually I'm having a good time, and I don't want to even think about, because thinking changes your brain. Like if I have to like really analyze it, and unfortunately, and like some bartenders hate it, I'm just like, pour me your shift beer, or literally I'll just say I want something between this percent, under this percentage, and blah blah blah. And like, because I think if you're at a place where people are, your head's supposed to be there.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's just social lubricant, and rather than being all of the focus.
So the
Yeah.
beers that you identified fit in that camp for me. Like, well, you know, like I could stare at the board at Four Peaks, and I often don't pick the beer you just said, but now I'm going to think about it differently.
Yeah.
But I've always Flagstaff IPA is always my first choice here. So
That's awesome. It's definitely our
Always
biggest
good.
seller.
Always great.
right on. Any other? I think we've got a nice little piece of content here. Anything else come to mind about this collaboration beer, the Flagstaff? What's coming up? Anything?
Well, just the fact that we actually finally got this done over 8 years, like you
Yep.
said earlier.
8 years, and then on the 21st, we're going to tap it
Yep.
here at
Tap it
Lumberyard.
June 21st.
Yep.
June
So
21st.
the day before Flagstaff Beer Festival.
We'll try to get this out before that. We have a little festival called Real Wild and Woody.
Yep.
That's coming up, and so I don't know when this is going to air. Might air next Thursday, or might be in the hopper for a while. But try to get it out before then. Anyway, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Time for an actual beer. I think I'm ready
Yeah, me too.
after yesterday. Cheers.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it.
See you.